stuff he wrote about Victoria Beckham at the wedding was meant to humiliate her. And I'm sure it did.
This was meant to be the ultimate celebrity fairy tale. A legendary football family, a billionaire heiress, a glossy wedding scene around the globe, all wrapped in designer gowns, massive estates, and spotless Instagram feeds.
Family power in Paris. Wow.
But behind the shine and the filters, something's been cracking for years. Now Brooklyn Beckham has blown the whole thing wide open, publicly and painfully, with zero hesitation. What started as soft whispers about wedding tension has exploded into one of the messiest, most talked about family feuds culture since Prince Harry and Meghan. Brooklyn has spent his whole life under a microscope as the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham. Born into fame, money, and non-stop pressure, he says that world slowly turned into a trap instead of a privilege. For years, people whispered about friction between Brooklyn, Nicola, and the Beckham family, but it was brushed off as normal family stuff, or smoothed over behind closed doors like nothing was wrong. That all changed when Brooklyn dropped a multi-part statement that left fans and insiders stunned. In it, he accused his parents of controlling his life, interfering in his marriage, and putting what he called brand Beckham ahead of his own happiness. The wildest part, he made it clear he's not looking to patch things up or play peacekeeper, and he's standing on that decision, family reputation be damned. That one statement flipped the entire story on its head. To see how things hit this breaking point, you have to rewind to April 2022, right back to Brooklyn and Nicola's lavish Palm Beach wedding. On paper, it looked like a dream setup. Around 500 guests, packed with A-listers, all gathered at the Peltz family's massive oceanfront estate, with money clearly not an issue. But off camera, tension was already creeping in. Brooklyn says the first real crack came down to the wedding dress. According to him, Victoria Beckham initially offered to design Nicola's gown, then suddenly backed out close to the finish line. Nicola ended up wearing Valentino, but Brooklyn claims that last-minute switch brought serious emotional stress during a moment that was supposed to be pure joy.
And what everyone's eyebrows started raising was especially when Nicola didn't wear Victoria Beckham's dress.
The Beckham side never addressed the situation publicly, but mixed stories quickly started circulating. That only pushed the idea that this wasn't a simple mix-up. It felt more like a quiet power struggle playing out behind smiles and speeches. And then came the moment that still dominates headlines today, the wedding dance. During the reception, singer Marc Anthony took the stage to perform what Brooklyn says was meant to be his first dance with Nicola. Instead, things took a sharp turn. Marc Anthony reportedly called out the most beautiful woman in the room and said Victoria's name.
So we're at the wedding, Marc Anthony's on stage, and Marc Anthony calls up Victoria Beckham. They have a mother-son dance.
Brooklyn says Nicola ran from the room in tears, while Victoria danced in front of hundreds of guests, a moment he describes as humiliating and deeply uncomfortable. Multiple guests later described the vibe as tense and awkward, with people frozen in their seats, unsure how to react. Brooklyn insists that moment permanently stained their wedding memories, so much so that he and Nicola later chose to renew their vows privately, just to take that moment back for themselves. For Brooklyn, this was never just about a dance. He says it was symbolic of crossed boundaries, symbolic of control, and symbolic of his parents, in his own words, refusing to fully let him step into his own life. And according to him, the wedding drama was only the opening chapter, not the whole story. In his statement, Brooklyn went even further. He alleged that before the wedding, his parents pressured him to sign away rights to his own name. He claims this could have impacted his future business plans, his marriage, and even his future family.
You, as the mother in particular, have to make it your job that your son's wife likes you.
Not long after, Brooklyn quietly adjusted his public identity, becoming Brooklyn Peltz Beckham. He also claimed that family support came with strings attached. According to Brooklyn, affection inside the Beckham household slowly became conditional. Public appearances, social media posts, and brand-friendly moments started to matter more. Miss a fashion show, skip a public nod, stop playing along with the image, and the distance reportedly grew fast. Since releasing the statement, Brooklyn and Nicola have appeared calm and unshaken. They were spotted walking arm in arm in Malibu, relaxed, affectionate, and clearly unified. Sources close to the couple say they feel relieved, even lighter, believing that speaking out finally lifted an emotional weight they had been carrying for years. Brooklyn, now 26, seems locked in on building a quieter life, far from the non-stop glare of the Beckham spotlight. He's leaned hard into food content, pushing his Cooking with Brooklyn series, rolling out his Cloud 23 hot sauce brand, and backing lifestyle projects that don't depend on the family name. On the other side, the silence from the Beckham camp has been loud. David and Victoria haven't directly answered Brooklyn's accusations. No statements, no public rebuttal, no visible attempt at reconciliation. Insiders say the family is shaken, but choosing restraint, fully aware that any reaction could pour more gasoline on an already burning situation. That quiet approach hasn't stopped the fallout. Brooklyn has reportedly blocked his parents on social media and asked that any communication go through legal channels. His younger siblings have stayed publicly neutral, though subtle online moves, song choices, captions, and timing have kept fans guessing where loyalties actually land. Brooklyn's statement punched straight through that polished narrative. He claims the pressure to protect the family image started early. Growing up, he says, came with constant anxiety, knowing his choices weren't just personal, they were business decisions tied to the brand. For a long time, he went along with it. He tried modeling, he tried photography, he explored acting. None of it fully stuck, and critics were quick to slap him with the Nepo baby label, a term Brooklyn has said followed him everywhere.
That's human nature. That's the way we continue the human race. Of course, he's going to prioritize his wife over his mom.
To the outside world, it looked like pure privilege. But to Brooklyn, it felt like being trapped inside an expectation he never asked for. Brooklyn says it felt like he was never allowed to fail in private, every mistake playing out in public. That context matters, because when Nicola Peltz came into his life, she represented something completely different, a version of family life he says he never knew could exist. Brooklyn has repeatedly said that being with Nicola showed him warmth, stability, and support without conditions. Once he experienced that contrast, he claims there was no going back. And one of the most emotionally charged claims in his statement had nothing to do with fashion, fame, or money. It was about dogs. Brooklyn alleged that during the devastating wildfires in Los Angeles, Nicola reached out to Victoria for help rehoming displaced animals. According to him, his mother refused to get involved. For many fans, that detail landed harder than any wedding headline. The online reaction has been brutally divided. Some people sympathize deeply with Brooklyn, seeing a son finally standing up for himself after years of pressure. They call his statements raw, honest, painful, and long overdue. Others firmly back David and Victoria, highlighting decades of public support, opportunities, and sacrifices. Then there's Nicola. Many argue she's being unfairly blamed simply because she represents change, and outsiders are always easier targets than parents. Brooklyn has made it clear that he tried to keep these issues private, but says he felt forced to speak out after ongoing media narratives tied to the family surfaced. Once that line was crossed, he claims silence was no longer an option. That's why his statement feels so final. When Brooklyn wrote that he doesn't want reconciliation, it wasn't temporary. It sounded deliberate, permanent, chosen. That's a heavy, almost terrifying message for any parent, whether famous or not. Meanwhile, David Beckham has addressed the situation only indirectly, stressing that children need space to make mistakes and learn from them. His comments were measured, calm, and carefully worded, leaving some to see restraint as wise and others to see it as a quiet dismissal. It all feels emotionally detached. Victoria, for her part, has stayed publicly silent, a silence many interpret as heartbreak rather than strategy. Insiders say she's devastated by the idea that she might not be part of Brooklyn and Nicola's future children's lives, and that, they suggest, could be the deepest wound of all. For now, Brooklyn and Nicola are prioritizing distance over damage control, a quieter life, fewer appearances, and more control over their story. David and Victoria are choosing silence, perhaps hoping dignity speaks louder than denial. What comes next is anyone's guess.